what do you do at Qualtrics?
So I've actually just moved roles. I was a sales leader at Qualtrics for 2 years, but now I'm a part of our partner ecosystem team, where we work with different partners that help us from a consulting, integration, and technology perspective.
Do you have to be technical to work at a tech company?
Heck no. There are so many support roles that exist within every tech organization. The first one that comes to mind for me is sales or support. I was in sales and technology for about 20 years. And the best part about being a technology salesperson is that you're just technical enough to be dangerous, but you don't have to code, you don't have to be an engineer, but you just have to love technology enough to learn it and be able to apply it to people's businesses. So that's what I did in the past. As a part of the partner ecosystem team, also don't have to be overly technical because we're focused on the business side of operations. And then think of every other support role, whether that's marketing, client success, finance, operations. These are folks that love technology, right? We kind of dig it. It keeps us on our toes, but we don't have to be technical in nature.
All right. Do you ever feel discouraged being in a male-dominated industry? If so, what do you do to mitigate that feeling?
Oh, man, you hit on a nerve. So I am the chairwoman of our Women's Leadership Development Group. It's one of our 5 employee resource groups at Qualtrics. And so in my 20 years of being in tech, I have found that usually I'm the only woman in the room. It's really been in the last 5 years that I've seen those numbers really start to actually take a shift. Where there are 2 or 3 of us, right? And we're starting to represent more of the population. Does it bother me? Sure it does, right? I want to see equal distribution over all underrepresented groups, right? We know that the best performing teams are ones that look like our customers. And that's not a bunch of, no knock to white men, but it's not a bunch of white men in a room, right? So we need gender diversity, sexual diversity, background diversity, right? Like we really need great representation. It's one of the reasons that I love Qualtrics so much because we're focused on creating true diversity in our organization.
What would you tell your kids now about working in tech that you wish that you had known when you were that age if it were the same kind of atmosphere that we're in?
Yeah, I love that question. It's so relevant and personal for me. So I have 2 daughters that are 16 and 14. And Emily, if you're watching this video, she's a part of She Tech in the Alpine School District. So Emily's 16, Alex is 14, and then my son is 12, right? And so we talk about tech pretty much every day, right? And I want them to be comfortable with it and know how to use it. I think back to when they were in middle school, and that's really when we need to capture girls' attention. They were involved with like robotics programs, and I remember her saying to me like, "Mom, I'm the only girl in the group." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I'm talking about." Right? But that was uncomfortable. And she's like, "I don't know if I really want to do it though." Like, no, you gotta be that girl. And it's hard to be the first and it's hard to be the only, but it will differentiate you in your career moving forward. So what I'll tell you guys is what I tell them. It's hard. It's uncomfortable when you're the only. But I think there is an amazing room for women in this space, women in technology. They need our understanding, our perspective, and our edge.
Do you feel like women need to emulate masculine qualities in order to succeed in this industry?
What I've come to learn is that everybody has a masculine and a feminine voice. One is more dominant than the other. What I will tell you is to be true to yourself, to be authentic, because if I show up and want to act like all of the guys, but I'm feminine, they're going to tell that I'm not being authentic, right? And human beings, we can just sense that from each other. So no, don't be like everyone else. Be who you are. Be true to yourself. You guys have never lived in a better time to truly be authentic to who you are. I think most organizations and society as a whole is a lot more accepting than maybe when I grew up. And I did feel that pressure growing up. to be one of the boys. And it was probably halfway through my career where I just kind of had this aha moment where I was like, screw this. This is awful. Like, I am not one of the guys. I love being a woman. I can hang with the guys. I can have a conversation, but I need to bring my perspective to the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
So important. And on that same page, have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome or self-doubt, feeling like you're not good enough for your role?
Have I ever felt imposter syndrome? Yeah, I think we all do, right? When we're put in a place where we're not completely confident or comfortable in what it is that we bring to the table, we start to self-doubt. And that's just human nature. So it's one of those like negative inner voices that we just need to shut down, and believe in ourselves, right? And find that self-confidence to just say, that's enough. Yeah, put that away. I'm done. So am I glad I pushed through? Heck yeah. Has it been hard? Sure. A lot of doubts along the way. I think what's really important is just to make sure that you've got mentors and sponsors along the way to help you get through those moments of self-doubt.
Why do you think so few women choose to work in the tech industry?
Yeah, great question, Kayla. I think what happens is that we steer boys and girls in two different directions at very young ages, plain and simple, right? Boys are naturally better at math and science, and girls are better at people skills and nurturing, right? Those natural traits. I'll call that bull crap. Like, I don't believe that's true at all. I was phenomenal in math and science, but I'll tell you just from my own journey that I was veered in a different direction. And again, it was a different time. And that's how girls were directed.
So on the other side of that coin, why do we even want women in the tech industry in the first place?
Oh, great question. Because if it was a bunch of the same people in the room making decisions about our products and services, we would end up with a product service that fit that audience and that audience only, right? We know that women have a majority of the buying power in the household, right? We know that they're major decision makers in organizations. So if we don't grab their perspective in designing, whether it's technology, healthcare, you name it, if we don't have their opinion, then how do we know what they want? Right? Like, we need to have all different kinds of races and backgrounds in the room. And if we don't, yeah, we're doing ourselves a huge disservice.
What would you say impresses you the most when you're considering hiring someone?
Yeah, great question. Especially as you guys start to think about interviewing, whether that's for like part-time jobs, internships in college. I will tell you the first thing that I look for is authenticity, right? Is that you can show up and just be you in your own skin. I'm not looking for the perfect answer, the perfect response, the perfect resume. I want you to own who you are as a person, right? One of the things that we look for at Qualtrics are our 5 leadership principles, and it spells out tacos. And I know you guys love tacos, which stands for transparent, all in, customer obsessed, one team, and scrappy. So when I'm interviewing somebody at Qualtrics, I love that they've gone and like found those leadership principles and they actually understand how that applies to them. Obviously, I'm looking for other things, like they know the topic at hand. They've got they're intelligent. They have EQ, emotional intelligence, IQ, that they've got motor, that they're willing to work hard. And I want to make sure that they're just an amazing person at their core. So that's what I'm looking for when we interview folks.
Can you talk a little bit about the ways that you've advocated for change and what were some of the successes and failures along with that?
Yeah, sure. So throughout my 20 years, I have constantly been an advocate for women. Again, 20 years ago, it was a lot different. There were a lot less associations, women stepping up and saying, something's not right here. I don't know what's going on. There's no women in the room. But I've always been that person with my senior leadership team going, there's a problem. right? This is not a representative group. How do we get more women at the table? So it's really just been, I would say, in the last 3 to 5 years that I've been a lot more verbose about my feelings. And I think part of that is the environment has gotten a lot more friendly to share feedback about diversity and inclusion. I've recently been watching, because we're working from home right now, I've been watching a lot of biographies, whether it's about Ruth Bader Ginsburg or about Hillary Clinton, um, women who were cutting edge in their time. And it's amazing to me that after all these years, we haven't made more headway. There's still a lot of room for us to go as women. And now, as I'm in my 40s, I'm a lot more verbal about it. And so I'm helping other women find their voice too. So I mentor, I sponsor women, I'm an advocate for their success. I think one of the things that we do as women is we don't support each other enough, right? We've got to be better proponents for each other. There's kind of this weird, like, competitive thing that happens sometimes with women. And if you haven't experienced it yet, which I think in high school it's probably the worst, you for sure will when you get into college or when you get into your career. So just support each other, advocate for each other. It's not a competition, right? As women start to elevate themselves, pull each other up to the top, right? You send the elevator back down. And so, right, like I do that with our women's leadership development group, giving women a voice to really be at the table.
All right. What can we do as women to inspire more male advocates to move things forward and accelerate change?
Yeah. So allies is a great topic. We have to be really intentional with our efforts. What you'll find is as you go to some of these women-led organizations, there will naturally be men that raise their hand and they're like, I want to help, right? I've got daughters, I've got a wife, I've got a female team. I need to know how to support them and help them grow. So one, we've got to like wrap our arms around those people, right? Make sure that they are loved and they know what to do, right? Like they need very specific marching orders, right? What we need them to do is we need them to go back and find more allies, right? So go talk to your friends, go have conversations about diversity and inclusion. I'd say that's number one. Number two is give our allies room to make mistakes. I think you'll see this happen a lot where an ally will make a mistake and say something about diversity and inclusion, and someone will get annoyed, like, oh, did you really just say that? That's awful. No, right? But in that moment, you've got to correct them and say, hey, like, I appreciate that you're trying to spread your wings here on diversity and inclusion, but actually, like, that was kind of offensive, right? So call it out in the moment, but do it with love and sincerity in a way that they feel comfortable coming back for a second or a third time. I would say that we also just really have to educate our allies.
How do you move forward when someone tells you that your idea won't work?
Yeah, great question. Why? Why won't it work? I think all too often as women, we kind of just back down instead of pushing back and saying, well, why do you think that? Right? I'd be happy to iterate. But all too often we just kind of cower and shy away because we're embarrassed, right? And I will tell you the one thing that men do really, really well is they push back. They're going to ask questions. Well, tell me, why do you think that? And what could I do that would be better around this? Right? It's a little bit more natural typically for men. So push back. What's the worst that could happen? Right? If anything, you'll get more comfortable in understanding how to have great collaborative conversations.
All right. Our final question.
Okay.
What is your why?
Oh, okay, so I'm going to do this one without crying. Maybe. I told you guys about my kids, right? They're 16, 14, and 12. And if I don't leave this world in a better place than I came into it, then what the heck am I doing here? I want my girls in 10 years, 8 years, when they enter the workforce, to be completely confident in their brain, in their hearts, in their spirits, and not have to worry about their sexuality, right? It doesn't matter whether you're one of the boys, right? I'm amazed that in 2020, we still have such a deficit as women. I'm blown away by it. So I challenge all of you to really find that why. Why do you want to go into technology, and who can you help, and what can your impact be? For me, at this stage in my life, it's about my kids, right? And that next generation. But when I initially got into tech, what was my why? Honestly, I wanted to make a ton of money, right? Full transparency, you can have an amazing career and make a buku bucks, right? And so as I started to get into it, I started to define much deeper whys as my life evolved. But find your why, because it's hard getting up every day. It's hard going into work when you know you're the only girl at the table. So find what it is at your core. And I promise it will be rewarding. So it's been amazing to watch just in the last 20 years, the evolution of tech. So I didn't see myself getting into technology. I think what you guys should be thinking as high school students is that all of you are in tech. I don't care whether you're going into healthcare or teaching, any field, you name it, is driven by and at the core has technology. So you've got to be good at it.